Here are 15 of the best Ask Reddit stories for today. I hope you enjoy and remember to subscribe. It really helps us out. We post new videos every day.
What is the creepiest glitch in the Matrix you've experienced? 10 years ago, I was returning home from a road trip with two friends. We came around a bend. It was a full moon and we could see the reflection from a lake below us, and other than that, the road was completely empty. Suddenly, everything went completely dark in the car. The music also stopped and restarted at the beginning. There was now a vehicle pulled over by the police about 1/4 mile in front of us that hadn't been there a split second before. I assumed I had dozed off for just a second as it was late. I thought it was still quite peculiar. Go. After about a minute, the driver of the car said, "Did that just happen to anyone else?" We then realized that the clock in the car was reading an hour later than it just had a minute before. To keep ourselves from freaking out, we decided that the car had possibly had a momentary electrical failure and reset the clock to an odd time, turned off all the lights, and restarted the CD player. But when we arrived home 25 minutes later, we were 1 hour late. I am missing an hour of my life, and to this day have no idea how it happened.
I'm not in love with my wife anymore. My wife and I have been together since we were 18 years old. We are 36 now. For the past 18 years, this woman has been everything to me. She has supported me in ways that I never even knew were possible. She has given me 2 beautiful kids and I will always be grateful. But I'm just not in love with her anymore. People like to say, well, you don't just wake up one day and just decide you don't love someone anymore. But that's how it happened for me. She didn't do anything to cause this rift, and it isn't because we've had major problems in our marriage, or that I don't find her attractive. To this day, my wife is the most beautiful woman I have ever laid eyes on. But beauty has nothing to do with anything, and I just can't explain why I'm not in love with her anymore. I feel awful. I feel like the world's most terrible person because her does this, who just wakes up after 18 years together and just decides they don't want it anymore, even though everything in your life marriage has been for the better since knowing your spouse. Me, apparently. My wife will always be my best friend and she will always hold a special place in my heart, but it would be wrong for the both of us for me to try and live a life that isn't true to me. Now I have to look this amazing woman in the eyes and hurt her, and I never wanted to do something like this, but she deserves someone who will always and unconditionally be in love with her.
I told my boyfriend that if he wants me making love with another woman, he must make love with another man the same amount of times. My boyfriend of 2 years recently confessed to me that for some time he's into lesbian things and wants me to make love with another woman while he's watching. I was shocked. I'm straight and so is he. I thought that this man will be my husband and we'll start a family one day. I declined and hoped this topic will never come back again, but it did, multiple times, despite my clear wishes. That's when I decided that I'll end our relationship. This weird approach made me rethink it, but when he another time tried to convince me, instead of sticking to it, I said that I'll agree on a condition in the title. He can watch me with a woman we pick, only if I can watch him with a man we pick, and we'll take turns on that. This seemed fair to me. If he really wants it, he should make the same sacrifice as I do. He was as shocked as I was the first time. He said, "How can I do this to him? That I'm doing it out of spite, etc. I'll end up things with him soon anyway." But him tasting the same medicine as he gave to me gave me at least a bit of satisfaction, even if deep down I'm just sorry for this 2 years and our future not becoming a reality.
What's the biggest plot twist you've seen in real life? During the last year of my grandfather's life, he had dementia and was having trouble keeping track of reality. Before he was placed into hospice, he kept complaining about a man that was in his house. He would say that he would come around at night and that he was taking his things and using his stuff. Grandma, of course, kept reassuring him that she was the only one there. His doctor increased his medications because he was losing touch with reality so badly. Fast forward to my grandfather's funeral and a man showed up that wasn't known by more than a few people in the family. Turns out he was an old friend of my grandmother's who showed up to give his support. In a small town like that, it wasn't exactly an unusual thing to have random people show up to the funeral home who knew the person at some point. Well, about a year later, my grandmother let slip that she is seeing someone. The guy from funeral. At this point, nothing too odd. They got to talking at church and we thought it was sweet. Then a bit later, sweet innocent old grandma mentions that it's their 3rd anniversary. Grandpa died 2 years prior. This man was the person that grandpa saw in his house every night. He was the reason that everyone thought grandpa was going crazy. He was the reason that my grandfather was medicated to the point of being a vegetable for the last horrible year of his life.
I made a big mistake. I was excited and hooked up with a married woman. I hooked up with a woman I met at a bar last weekend. I'm not normally into the one-night stand thing or hookup culture, but I was excited and she was hot. Well, we went back to her place and did the deed, and after we were done I took a shower and was getting dressed when she says to me, "You need to hurry. My husband just texted me and he's going to be here soon." I was shocked because she said nothing about being married. I said, "You have a husband? What the F?" She seemed shocked and said, "Is it a problem for you?" I said yes, and even though we exchanged numbers, that I didn't want to see her again. Well, on Monday I searched her name on Facebook, found her husband and sent him a quick message. I told him that we hooked up last weekend and that she wasn't wearing a ring and I didn't know she was married, and we made love in his bed and that she told me after. I told him I was very sorry and if I had known I never would have slept with her, and he's welcome to punch me out if he sees me. He messaged me back and said he had a feeling she's been sleeping around and that he appreciated me telling him, and that because I didn't know, he's not upset with me. He said he's going to confront her in a couple of days. Today she texted me and was angry that I told her husband and that he's filing for divorce. I texted back, Is that a problem for you? And she has not responded. I still feel crappy, but I'm glad I told her husband. It felt like the way my girlfriend talks about men is really starting to wear me down. This has been a brewing issue for the last 2 years, but recent events have made me wonder if I can handle it anymore. My girlfriend has always been very opinionated. She's kind of the stereotypical activist kind of person regarding women's issues, and on most things we agree, but I'm really starting to get upset at how she talks about a lot of these issues because she always seems to make everything into a war between women and men, and it's starting to break me down a little bit. Like, with recent events, she's just gone into multiple tirades about how selfish and uncaring men are and how they cannot care about women at all. I understand why she's angry, but sometimes she says really dumb shite. Like yesterday, she commented on a post agreeing that straight women are proof that sexuality isn't a choice, because who would want to be straight and a woman if they had the choice? She also agreed vehemently with a post saying that being a woman is wild because you're the only group expected to be romantically attached to their natural predator. Anytime I try to discern whether or not her opinions extend to everyone or just some guys, I'm chewed out and told I'm being part of the problem and I should just somehow understand that her blanket generalizations don't extend to me because I'm different somehow. That doesn't exactly comfort me. Honestly, I'm just exhausted. It's all been wearing on myself.
Today I messed up by telling my boyfriend about my backup plans for the future. I messed up by telling my boyfriend that I'd join the military if I didn't find a passion. Me and my boyfriend were talking about our future and we started talking about our hobbies and passions. He loves all things science, more specifically about chemistry. He loves it and talks about it with stars in his eyes, and he plans to make a career out of it in the future. I don't have any. I'm not passionate about anything like that. I don't have any hobbies. I play video games and enjoy the occasional arts and crafts, but nothing that I could talk about for hours and hours with so much enthusiasm as he does. I told him that and about my backup plan to just join the military and make myself useful in some way, that I had nothing else and that I shouldn't just be wasting oxygen. There was a small silence. I just hear in the smallest voice I've ever heard him speak, and that I almost didn't hear it. Please don't leave. I looked up at him. He looked so sad and maybe even scared, like I was going to evaporate right in front of him. I quickly apologized and reassured him that it was my very, very last option and that even then there was a large chance that I wouldn't do it anyway. He just Who is the most badass person you've ever met? My late father-in-law. Age 13, the Russians came into his village of ethnic Germans in what is now Serbia. Shot his father in the front parlor. Dragged the whole family off and put them in death camps where they were worked to death bit by bit. He escaped from the camp 3 times. Recaptured and beaten almost to death. They kept them alive because they could repair electric circuits. Finally escaped. And smuggled the whole family of 7 out of there. Finally ended up in a US-run displaced persons camp. Worked as a welder and ran a cleaning business. Bought a house. Raised 2 children and sent them to college. Never became a citizen because he never learned to read or write English. Dying of emphysema. He got a notice that ICE was thinking of deporting him because he had let his green card lapse. I drove him up to the federal building and wheeled him in his wheelchair. The officious clerk said, "So we may have to deport you." I laughed and said, "To where?" Read his green card. Citizen of no country. Surviving that kind of childhood and then living a good life. Total badass. It's something you've experienced that most people never will. I got a girl pregnant about 9 years ago, and when I tried to see my daughter, she fought me every step of the way. No one believed me when I would tell them what was happening. I recorded every phone call and interaction we had for years. About 4 years ago, my daughter was taken from her mother by DHR for felony child abuse and placed with her grandparents because the mother told them I wasn't in the picture. When I went to DHR and they realized what was going on, they finally placed my daughter with me. After about a month, the mother and the grandparents decided they were going to come get my daughter at all cost. The next morning they tore my front door off the hinges, assaulted me in my home, and kidnapped my daughter out of her bed. After I called the police, a statewide manhunt involving city, county, and the FBI began for my daughter and the 4 family members that broke into my home. They had driven in 2 separate cars and took 2 separate routes away from my home. About 12 hours later, all 4 had been arrested and extradited back to the city I live in. Fast forward about 2 years. All 4 of the group are now convicted felons. I now have full custody of my daughter and life is pretty awesome. What seems harmless but is incredibly dangerous? A human bite. I worked at a kindergarten and one kid was sometimes super sweet but sometimes really mean. He could switch in a second. While I was naming the coloring pages they were about to get, he walked up to me and bit me in the arm. Didn't think it was through. 'Cause no blood. But it started swelling and getting red and the marks were clearly there. Went to the doc right after my shift. He explained a human bite is the second most dangerous bite there is. Got antibiotics but they didn't work. Arm just kept swelling and getting completely dark purple over 2 days. Doctor sent me to the hospital where I got strong antibiotics. Basically everything in me was cleaned with that speep. Felt weak for months. If it didn't start working by that night, I'd have to come back and be hospitalized to get my underarm removed. I've shed some bricks there. Never thought a kid's bite could cause this. Luckily the swelling got less and the bruise stopped spreading, so I still have my arm. But that was very close.
Am I the a-hole for holding my son's college fund hostage? I, 48 male, have a son that graduated this year from high school. We, my wife and I, started his college fund the minute we found out she was pregnant. Since we make good money, in the mid-six figures, his college fund currently has almost $400,000 in it. We have never told our son what to do with his life. We may have guided his decisions as any good parent should, but since he was still young we let him make his own decisions. We also never expected academic excellence or forced him into sports or artistic activities. Now that he graduated high school, he said that he did not want to go to college. We said as long as he was sure, he could whatever he wanted. He refused trade schools too. He also did not want to work with us in our business. He said that he planned to use his college fund to start a business of his own. I said that I will allow it only if he takes some business management, accounting and law classes in the nearby community college. I said that I would pay them out of pocket and not from the fund, and then I would expect a well-made business plan before I would give him the money. My wife agrees 100%. But he called us a-holes for holding his college fund hostage to make him do what we want. We think we are just doing our best to make sure that his business succeeds.
I was a lesbian, but I changed my sexuality after I had intercourse with a man. I came out as a lesbian when I was 12 years old, and I'm very lucky to have supporting parents who accepted me for who I am. Fast forward to 2020 during lockdown when the world seemed bleak. I had a male friend who helped ease the boredom. It was nothing sensual at first, but one night while we were watching a movie, he kissed me. It was my first time making out with a guy and it felt weird, but one thing led to another and we did the deed. It felt like a spiritual awakening of some sorts, like wires were connecting in my brain. After we had intercourse, I just sat there thinking about my life while he slept. We got married a few months ago and I would never have guessed this would be my reality. To anyone out there who's struggling with something similar, it'll all be fine, I can promise you that. Have you seen The Real World hit A Spoiled Brat? Went on a double date with my boyfriend, his friend, and his friend's date. The whole evening, she was rude, snobby, and overall a demanding person that felt entitled to whatever she wanted. She was rude to the waitstaff and suggested we tip them nothing for refusing to refund her order after she ate the whole thing, and complained about everything. On the car ride back, she started driving, then halfway through the drive, announced she didn't want to drive anymore. The rest of us had been drinking, so we all refused to take over. She said fine, but I'm not driving either. Let go of the steering wheel, and slammed on the brakes. We got rear-ended, and it was her car, so no cost to the rest of us, but it was instant karma for her behavior and attitude.
What's the weirdest social norm that nobody seems to question? This usually gets mentioned a lot, but I haven't seen it in this thread. It's perfectly acceptable for a woman to wear a bikini, and you will even see this on children's programs on television. However, bra and panties, which appear to be the exact same thing and show the same amount of skin, are a no-no. The only real difference is that we decided in our minds that one is for swimming and the other functions as undergarments. Working 9 to 5 5 days a week. Why does everyone have to be at work at the same time? If you work 9 to 5 you are never able to go to the bank, post office, anything like that, because they are also open 9 to 5. But there are people out there who think that you don't have a real job unless you work 9 to 5, and it's never questioned why they think that way. How when we see someone that we kind of know in public, we do not acknowledge them and pretended to not know who they are. Not really a social norm, but it just blows my mind that tall buildings actually skip naming floor 13. Goes right from 12 to 14 because of stupid superstition. Adults do this.
Women of Reddit, what things do men do that frighten you without them even realizing it? A guy I'm seeing took me out to a baseball game for our first date. It was nice. I didn't get any weird vibes from him at all. After the game, he asked if I wanted to go see some of the spots he likes to go walking. I didn't think much about it until we got there, and I realized he was basically taking me to the woods in the dark. He told me to follow him, and I'm thinking I'm about to get killed, but it turns out he just wanted to show me his favorite place to go on walks and chill, because you can see the entire city from there, and at night it looks really pretty. He took me to a couple more trails that night, and I ended up having a great time and forgot that it's pitch black outside, and I'm with a guy I've never gone out with before out in nature. Definitely thought I was going to get killed at first though. Men who have sold or donated sperm and gave permission for the child to contact you at 18, what is your story? My younger bro donated multiple times unbeknownst to me. Years later, my wife and I did Ancestry.com to get an idea of how diverse our backgrounds were, and wham! Started getting contacted by lots of people, over a dozen, saying we were close relatives. At first I was confused and asked the early ones about their parentage. They all had similar stories. Single mom went to a sperm bank. Didn't take long to guess what happened. Call my brothers and asked. Younger one fessed up and said yes. He went multiple times. In fact, they told him he had to stop donating because there was a statistical probability his progeny could meet and date. At least they seemed ethical. I asked if it was okay if I gave them his contact. He was fine with it. The weird thing is that they all had his face. Like, one look at them and it was obvious who their father was. Anyway, this went on for a couple of years and they all connected with each other. Seems there is over 20 now, probably more. He has met a couple of them, but it was all casual.